Hey guys, first Regardsman here, and I'll be talking about every single heroic weapon in Space Marine 2 patch 12.0 and which one you should buy first. Now this was on the PTS, but most things do remain the same between the PTS and the live game, but if there is a major change, I'll put it in a pinned comment. Now in this patch we have 3 brand new heroic weapons with the heroic heavy bolt rifle, the heroic combat knife, and the Tech Marine's brand new heroic Omnissian Axe. Now the first one I'll be talking about here is the heroic heavy bolt rifle. This is just a heavy bolt rifle with a grenade launcher attachment. This is just the overall best heavy bolt rifle option in the game, in my opinion, at the moment. I think the grenade launcher really fixes up the major downsides of this gun, because one of the big issues of the heavy bolt rifle is the lack of contested health recovery and the lack of stagger, and the grenade launcher will give you both of those. So really great option, and also compared to the other grenade launcher we have here on the bolt rifle, this one also has more damage thanks to perks down here like remote threat. Enemies at a distance of more than 25 meters take 20% more damage. This will affect your grenade launchers, not just your bolter portion, and the bolt rifle here only has like able precision, even though the majority of the tree is exactly the same as a heavy bolt rifle. So it's not like a super substantial damage increase here, but is notable. Now, one other thing about the heroic heavy bolt rifle that I really like is that this gun is one of the only crossover guns in the entire game with the heavy class. So if you're trying to level up your heavy and you want a gun to use immediately across classes, you can just buy the heroic one, and even if you have a standard issue tier here, you can still use the heroic variant, and that is also true for the Tech Marine. So really good value here, and I think the heroic heavy bolt rifle is my personal favorite of the bunch. Now, one final thing I want to mention here before we go on to the other heroic weapons is that if you take perks like extended magazine or increased capacity on a bolt rifle grenade launcher option, you will get more total ammo capacity for your grenade. So just keep that in mind. And on top of this, the perk here, Tactical Precision, that reads headshots deal 20% more damage and non-headshot damage decreases by 10%. This will reduce your grenade launcher damage, so if you don't want to lose that, don't take this perk. But to be honest, I still think this one's worth taking because headshot damage is worth a lot, and losing 10% damage on headshots, or excuse me, non-headshot damage doesn't matter too much, especially on tactical where your grenades one-shot guys anyways with your Auspex combo. So just wanted to mention that here for people that are unaware. Now, this brings us to the brand new heroic combat knife, which is kind of a shocking addition. I expected us to get a heroic power axe before this, but now we have 2 heroic combat knife options, and this one has 18 strength, 3+ speed, 1 cleaving potential, and defense type of fencing. Now, the window here is not actually fencing, and that's mainly because of our heroic perk effect, Knuckles. Riposte window is shorter, but each riposte deals damage to the attacker. Now, all this means by riposte is perfect parry, so your perfect parries will deal damage to enemies scaling with difficulty, and your perfect parry window is a bit shorter. Now, the perfect parry window here feels like a block weapon. If you are used to using a block weapon, you'll be right at home with this. All it is just a block weapon window on top of a fencing effect. So as long as you parry on the enemy hit, you should be fine. Now, as far as the class I think this weapon is best on, I think it's probably tactical here, mainly because of the perk interaction here with battle focus. A perfect time parry or block gives the parried enemy a mark from Auspex scan. This will increase the damage of your heroic combat knife parries, which is a pretty nice synergy, and it will also give you the buff on the first parry. You don't have to apply the Auspex first, so really nice there, though that's also true for like precise calibration and concentrated fire combos. Pretty good option overall. I think he really does benefit from this quite a bit, and I would probably take this weapon over the relic tier fencing option, even though it has a 9+ speed, because being able to use this weapon on top of the fencing window, on top of this free damage, it just feels like the best option overall. Like, there are a lot of cases in Space Marine 2 where you will just be parrying enemies no matter what. So getting free damage on like a mandatory part of the combat loop is pretty nice. I think this one's going to be a pretty big option for a lot of players. So if you want to pick this one up first, I really can't blame you there. It is a really fun weapon to use. I would say the other heroic combat knife, the Power Gladius, is better. We'll get more into this one later, but this one's still a great option. I think most players will be satisfied with the purchase of this one. That's pretty much all I have to say about the heroic combat knife. Now, this brings us to the last of the newly added heroic weapons, and that is the heroic Omnissian Axe. Now, this is a weapon exclusive to the Tech Marine class. It has a 13 strength, 9 speed, 1 cleaving potential, and defense type is fencing, and the heroic perk effect here is called Pointy End. Damage of the attack after Omnissian Rush is increased based on the time of the charge. And the Omnissian Rush is the charge attack on this weapon. Basically, you'll just like point your weapon forward, charge through Minoris, and like stab Majoris or Extremis in the face. It's a pretty fun weapon attack. I will say this is probably the least inventive of the newly added heroic weapons, but for the most part, I would say this is the best fencing option of the Omnissian Axe, and the most important thing about this heroic weapon is that I think it is a must-buy if you're trying to level your Tech Marine and Omnissian Axe, because if you buy the heroic variant, you will be able to use this right off the bat instead of the standard issue version, and that'll make leveling your Tech Marine's Omnissian Axe way easier, so I think most players will wind up purchasing this weapon because of that, though I do also want to mention that the Omnissian Axe definitely has a learning curve. This is the hardest melee weapon to use in the game, in my opinion. It's by no means impossible, but the learning curve is quite steep on this thing, and is very obviously built for the Tech Marine, because until you learn how to incorporate your servo gun strikes, this weapon will feel quite clunky. But just keep in mind, guys, once you get past that initial hump, this weapon is very strong, it is a very fun weapon to use, and it does incorporate itself very well into the playstyle of the Tech Marine. It just feels like shit at first, so I want to make sure people were aware of that. But as far as whether or not you should purchase this weapon first, like I said before, it is a must-buy if you're trying to level up your Omnissian Axe, in my opinion. But as far as fun goes, I would probably use other variants for the Omnissian Axe once I level it up all the way, so it's not like a must-purchase for me in terms of usage, but for leveling, definitely pick it up. And that's pretty much all there is to say about the Omnissian Axe here. So those are the 3 brand new heroic weapons added to Space Marine 2 patch 12, and now it's time to talk about the other heroic weapons in this game, starting with the melee options, and more importantly, the Storm's Dominion heroic Thunderhammer. Now, this is the best fencing hammer in the game currently. It has 11 plus strength, 8 speed, 6 cleaving, as opposed to the other one having 11 strength, 8 speed, and 2 cleaving, so there really is no reason not to take this one over this one. And as far as the heroic perk effect here is concerned, it is called Electrified Thunderclap. Fully charged attacks leave behind a shock grenade effect. Now, the description of this perk is actually incorrect. You do not have to charge up your aftershock at all to get a 5-second shock grenade on an aftershock slam, but keep in mind it will not work for any attack besides aftershock. It only works for that one, and things like ground slam don't do anything. Now, one other cool perk interaction with this is that the perk here, Aftershock Improve, that reads Aftershock gains an additional smash. This will give you 2 shock nades for 1 smash each, so a really nice option to double the value of this perk. And one other thing on top of all of this is that if you are playing the Assault class and you ground pound while you have this weapon, you will also put down a shock nade effect on the ground pound landing spot. So a really nice thing there, though to be honest, I don't think this weapon is super valuable on the Assault class unless you're building for gun strikes or something like that, and I would definitely take it on Bulwark over this, because Bulwark has so many shock perks like Shock and Awe for 25% more damage taken by enemies in a shock area, and other options to shock enemies like Emergency Countermeasure or even like the far worse defensive advantage. So I do think it's better on him, and really on Assault you predominantly want melee damage, so the balanced weapons got buffed this patch, so this one's better than ever, and the block weapon has been the best option previously, so I really think it does fall behind a bit on this class. But on the Bulwark, it's pretty fun, even if it's a bit gimmicky, and that's pretty much all there is to talk about for this weapon. Now, the next heroic melee weapon we're going to be talking about here is Death Grasp, the heroic Power Fist. Now, this is one of the best weapons in the entire game for newer players. I think this is also the best of the 2 fencing options between the relic tier and this one. This one has a 13 strength, 9 plus speed, 2 clean potential, and the heroic version has a 15 strength, a 7 plus speed, and 2 cleaving, and the heroic perk effect here is called Follow Up Shot. Performing a finisher marks a nearby Majoris level or higher enemy for a gun strike, and light attack damage increases by 200%, but charge attack damage decreases by 50%. So the light attacks on this thing hit like an absolute truck. This is a really easy weapon to use because light attacks on the Power Fist, they really do not lock you down at all, so you have that opportunity to just do free damage and also gun strike, and getting all these free gun strikes really helps out classes like Assault and Bulwark, which this weapon is obviously on, when they take the perk here, Armor Reinforcement. Non-finisher gun strikes restore 1 armor segment. This perk combined with follow-up shot makes it very hard to die against Tyranids, and I think most new players like to play Tyranids anyways, and really most players in this game period, so having that opportunity to have a very safe build into the execute loop of Space Marine 2, I think that helps out a ton of players, and losing 50% of your damage on charge attacks really doesn't matter too much on the Power Fist, because the Power Fist still has amazing range on the charge attacks, and the damage here, even with a 50% reduction, is still quite high on top of that like added safety with gun strike. So a really great option if you are new, if you want to play the assault or the bulwark with armor reinforcement versus Tyranids and you want a weapon for that, this is a great option. Now this brings us to the Xenophase Blade. This is the heroic power sword variant in this game with a 15 plus strength, 3 plus speed, and 16 cleaving potential with a defense type of balance. Now, the heroic perk effect here is called Ancient Technology. Power break waves are wider and deal 20% more damage. This perk is pretty good. I think the major upside of this isn't even the damage, it's actually how it changes the power break wave angle, because with this perk active on the Xenophase Blade, you are able to hit zoanthropes and neurothropes out of the sky. That is a super useful thing for your power rake, and power rake is already the most powerful attack on this weapon anyways, so pretty good perk here. I think the major thing holding this weapon back is number one, the base damage, and the defense type is balanced. The balanced defense type does just kind of suck in this game, especially for a power sword compared to the block version or even like the fencing option. And hopefully in this patch, because in patch 12 they're buffing up all the other balance options and their base damage, they buff up the heroic balance weapons too, because if they get that bonus, they will feel incredible, but we'll see what they do with that. But that's pretty much all I have to say about the Xenophase Blade. And this brings us to the heroic chainsword, the double-edged relic. This is a 19 strength, 4 plus speed, 10 cleaving potential defense type balanced weapon with the heroic perk effect here, Fist Fight. You can perform an additional heavy attack after a quick punch, also a front kick is replaced with a quick punch, and all heavy attacks deal 15% more damage. This is a pretty fun perk effect. It's not the strongest thing ever, but if you stack it on top of stuff like Overcharge for a 25% multiplicative damage increase on your charged melee attacks, this weapon can be pretty damn fun. And on top of that, this is like the only weapon I would ever take the Chainsword perk here, Trampling Stride on. After performing a stomp, hold the attack button to perform an additional stomp. This is a pretty fun build, one of my preferred, though I would say the full throttle skip base Chainsword is better. You want to have like a super funny time punching a Carnifex in the face or like punching a Hive Tyrant in the face. This is pretty good for that, and I think the double-edged relic chainsword is definitely better now than it used to be, because when this thing initially launched, it had 1+ speed, but these days it's at 4+. So if that sounds interesting to you, you can definitely pick this one up. Now this brings us to the heroic combat knife, the Power Gladius. This has a 14 strength, 7+ speed, and 2 cleaving potential with a defense type balance, and in my opinion, this is the current best heroic melee weapon in Space Marine 2. It has an incredibly damaging ability over here with Agile Strike. After a perfect dodge, the next melee attack deals 120% more damage and can be stacked up to 3 times. This perk has a hidden effect beyond the description, where the damage bonus will linger for 1 second after the initial attack, and that means you can do things like a Skull Crusher or a light combo on top of things like a Shadow Stab if you want to. It has a ton of utility. This weapon really is incredible, and if you stack up all 3 damage bonuses here on top of like an Auspex on Tactical, you can literally one-shot a boss on Absolute. It is pretty hilarious how much damage this weapon actually does. Now, all the balanced weapons in Space Marine 2 patch 12 got a damage buff, except for heroic versions, at least for now. And if they do buff up the balanced damage of this version, it's just going to be that much better. So I would say this is a must-buy. It's definitely one of the best options in the whole game for any heroic weapon. But as far as melee weapons are concerned, I think it really is just the best. So hopefully, that gave you an idea of what you should buy. So now we've talked about all the heroic melee weapons, it is time to talk about the heroic ranged weapons, starting off with the Combi Melta. I think the Combi Melta is currently the weakest of the heroic options. The heroic perk effect here is just called Combi Weapon. You can use an alternative Melta firing mode, accessed through Augmented Vision Scope mode. All that means is, when you zoom in, you have access to a Melta on your gun, similar to the grenade launcher, and this is a pretty good ability. Like, it's not amazing by any means. It is nice for triggering stuff like Rapid Health. It says when your health is below 30%, killing 7 enemies in rapid succession restores health by 10%. This is easier to pull off with the AoE of the Melta, but the biggest thing the Melta is good for is number 1, stagger, and just like number 2, that's pretty ammo efficient, because unlike the grenade launcher where you can't get back any of your grenades from ammo caches and stuff like that, you can get back all of your Melta shots on this weapon from an ammo cache. So pretty ammo efficient. That means you don't really have to take things like Emperor's Vengeance if you don't want to, though I would say this does kind of lag behind the heroic heavy bolt rifle right now. I think this one is definitely better, and I hope they buff this up a bit. But if you want to pick this one up for like the cool factor, it's not a bad weapon by any means. The bolter portion is also quite strong, and losing damage on the Melta portion of this gun, if you take perks like Tactical Precision, really does not hurt you too much, so that's definitely a good option if you decide to pick this. But you know, that is up to you. That's pretty much all there is for the Combi Melta gun. And this brings us to the heroic wrapped Instigator bolt carbine. This is the best Instigator bolt carbine in the game in my opinion for a couple reasons. The heroic perk effect here is called higher rate burst, fire rounds and higher rate burst. All this perk actually does is just up your burst fire from 3 shots to 5 shots. You have a 5-round burst on this weapon, and that ups your DPS dramatically for 2 reasons. Number 1, your firepower on this weapon is a base 10 plus as opposed to like the 8 plus, 8 plus, and then 10 on this 3-round burst variant. And on top of that, the 5 rounds means you're just putting out more shots. So barrel stuffing with this gun is very strong. The ammo economy is pretty good on top of the damage if you go down the bottom tree. And also, the sniper perk here, targeted shot, that says the first range attack that breaks camo cloak deals 75% more damage. This will linger for a second after the camo cloak breaks, so you will get a full burst of this, like exactly 5 shots off for this perk. I'm pretty sure it was buffed with this weapon in mind, so a really good synergy there. And even on Vanguard, it's very good because Vanguard can just go with the perk Battlefield Awareness here and get a 10% increased range damage within 8 meters, and he's pretty much always barrel stuffing, so having a fairly inaccurate option here is pretty good for him and the sniper because being close range, it's just not that big of a problem in Space Marine 2. Like, a lot of enemies in this game are just like in your face all the time, so being able to barrel stuff them is a very good option. This gun definitely excels at that compared to other Instigator versions, and if we're being real, the only thing these versions are good at is like medium and long range, and this one's still pretty decent at medium range, and it kind of falls off at long range just in accuracy. That's the only reason I would like ever take these, but to be honest, just take this one, because this one is the best in my opinion. And speaking of long range, it is time to talk about my personal favorite heroic weapon, which is the wrapped bolt sniper rifle. This weapon is insanely fun and insanely damaging. It has a 6 firepower but a times 10 headshot multiplier. That means you will pretty much one-shot any Majoris in the entire game and put them into execute. And the heroic perk effect here is called replenishing hit. After performing a headshot, 1 round is automatically reloaded into the weapon. This means that as long as you keep hitting headshots, you will never lose ammo on this gun. If you miss, you're probably going to lose ammo forever, because one hidden effect of this weapon doesn't tell you anywhere is that ammo restoration perks do not do anything for this gun, so things like reload restoration don't work, and perks like versatile precision in your prestige perk tree also do not function, so that's kind of an unfortunate thing. But there's a bit of an upside here in that if you're able to collateral an enemy's head with this weapon, you will get 2 shots back instead of 1, and for some reason in like patch 11, they might fix this in patch 12, but in patch 11, if you execute a Tyranid warrior around a bunch of Minoris and kill them that way, it does count as a headshot for every one of them, and you do get ammo back for that, so like max out your magazine. That's a pretty funny bug, but I'm pretty sure it'll be fixed eventually, but either way, I just want to make sure you were aware of that. Now, this gun is definitely better on Tyranids and Chaos. I don't know if it's a must purchase for all players. I mean, if you're a sniper main, you probably already have this. It is technically the best weapon on sniper if you're hitting every single headshot, but it's definitely harder to use because of that ammo limitation. And on Chaos especially, shooting Chaos Spawn in the face is a bit harder, but they are making that easier next patch, so just keep that in mind. But as far as this gun goes, if you like sniper rifles, if you want to blow apart Tyranid heads, which most people do anyways, definitely pick this one up. It's kind of a no-brainer. It's really fun. It's my preferred. And as far as snipers go, it's the most entertaining one in the game, in my opinion. And this brings us to the heroic heavy bolter, Chains of Duty. Now, this one has a firepower of 10, which puts it above most of the other heavy bolter options, which is pretty funny. And this is simply put the best heavy bolter in the game for multiple reasons, but the first one is the fact it has a fencing parry window and an increased parry window in general, because the heroic perk effect here, reinforced gun casing, says perfect parry window increases by 50%, and after a gun strike, the weapon is completely cooled. And one thing that this perk does not mention is that this weapon has no charge up time at all for its maximum fire rate, which is kind of insane. So you get full DPS, a perfect parry window that's increased on top of a fencing window when all other options are balanced, and on top of all of that as well, you will instantaneously cool down your weapon on a gun strike. Now, the reason this perk is here is to mainly circumvent the fact that the venting speed here is 2+, and when you overheat this gun, you will take like all 40,000 Warhammer years to properly cool down the weapon without using this perk, which is why gun strikes are kind of mandatory as part of the loop, but gun strikes are also very easy to pull off because you do have a fencing window with a 50% increase, which is kind of ridiculous and really fun to use. I would say if you plan on playing heavy or remaining heavy for any reason and you want to use the heavy bolter, just pick this up first. It will make leveling up your heavy bolter way easier, and it's also just the best option in general for any heavy bolter you're going to use. And this brings us to the second heroic weapon on the heavy class, which is the Relic Battle-Worn Heroic Heavy Plasma. Now, this weapon's heroic perk effect is called Plasma Hail. In heavy stance, get an increase in fire rate instead of charge shots. Now, this perk makes it so you cannot do charge shots at all. Doesn't matter if you're in heavy stance or not. This weapon is just a fully automatic common shot machine, and common shots on the heavy plasma are super underrated. They have a lot of damage. They also have a bit of AoE on their own, and the single target damage of this weapon is really good. It's a very fun weapon to use. My major issue with this one is that it is incredibly ammo hungry. You will run out of ammo all the damn time. Even if you were to move into all ammo perks on this thing, you will still struggle to maintain a maximum ammo capacity on this gun because it does just chew through that much ammo. And another issue I have with this gun is that a lot of the perks in the heavy tree, stuff like supercharged shot for increasing damage on charge shots, stuff like the perk here, heavy velocity, these do nothing for your gun because you don't have charge shots, and you kind of have to take some of these sometimes, so you just have dead perk slots on this weapon, which is a pretty bad design in my opinion. But as far as the actual weapon performance goes, it is great for single target damage. It will nuke down bosses. The heavy plasma is good in all variants. This one just does struggle with ammo, so just keep that in mind before you purchase this one. And this brings us to our final two heroic weapons to talk about, which are the Heroic Bolt Pistol and Heroic Heavy Bolt Pistol. Now I'm going to talk about this one first. The Heroic Bolt Pistol is a pretty good gun. The heroic perk effect here is called Burst Fire. You can fire shots in a 3-round burst. This will show an animation during gun strikes. You will not get bonus damage from it though, so just keep that in mind. And I would say this gun was definitely better in patch 10 because in patch 11, they buffed up the other standard relic tier bolt pistol options, and now I think they have kind of power crept this one. It's still pretty good. I mean, it's like not a bad weapon by any means, though I would probably just use it to have a heroic suppressed sound effect on the Raven Guard skin because this is like the best reason to use it in my opinion. Other options for this would be stuff like Sniper, because Sniper can benefit from the 3-round burst because every shot from that will count for Pattern of Excellence for the 3 consecutive headshot requirement to get an equipment charge back. If you want to use it on him for like a burst fire build, you can definitely do that. But as far as other classes go, I do kind of stay away from it now because it's just not as strong as it used to be. Now, the Heroic Heavy Bolt Pistol is my personal favorite here of the two secondary options. This one has a firepower of 12 and also has the highest gun strike damage in the entire game. And the heroic perk effect here is called No Help Is Coming. Shooting an enemy with the Elite Stream status stops you from calling for reinforcements, and headshots will kill in one shot. Now, this perk is underrated. You really don't realize how many enemies in this game call for reinforcements per match until you play with this gun and then play without it, because being able to one-shot a guy that's calling for reinforcements is super useful. Now, in patch 11, this was bugged to not function on body shots at all. That is now fixed in patch 12, so it's actually functioning better, though in some ways that might be a nerf because you couldn't get like the follow-up shot for an instant kill. Now, despite having a magazine capacity of 6 and an ammo reserve of 48, the ammo economy of this gun is better than it sounds initially, mainly because on absolute, or I should say lethal difficulty and above, and things like hard stratagems, enemies that are calling for reinforcements, when you interrupt the reinforcement call, they will go in rage pretty much every single time, and a rage enemy will get a full heal and also just start blocking their sword arms usually, which is pretty annoying for Tyranid sword warriors. And because of that, being able to one-shot them is saving you an entire enraged enemy in one shot, on top of stopping the reinforcement call and saving you more ammo there. So a way better ammo economy than it sounds initially, and this gun's damage is also quite high. Now, the accuracy does kind of suck, like it's not a very accurate weapon, but it's like one of the major downsides. But as far as options to stop reinforcement calls go, this weapon kind of just makes tactical signal jammer perk look hilariously bad by comparison. I do think it's one of the best options for the secondary in the game currently. So if you're going for like a secondary option, if you're brand new to Space Marine 2 and you have one heroic weapon to buy in the entire game, I would probably just pick this one up first. Because of the high gun strike damage, you will be able to punch up into those higher difficulties, level up your characters faster, and get more accolades in hard stratagems and normal stratagems, which will let you buy more heroic weapons later. And that is pretty much every single heroic weapon in Space Marine 2 patch 12. Now, as a rundown for which ones I think you should buy first, I would say number 1, Heroic Heavy Bolt Pistol, just because it goes on every single class in the game. And though really, which one you buy first is up to you, because a person that wants to play Sniper as their main, they're going to prioritize a sniper weapon like the Bolt Sniper Rifle. Heavies would prioritize things like the Heavy Bolt Rifle and the Heavy Bolter. As far as like sheer value goes, Heavy Bolt Rifle is quite powerful, like I mentioned before, because it is on multiple classes, including the brand new one. But don't be afraid to like go against the grain and just buy one that you think looks fun, because at the end of the day, it's your game. Play what you like, and this is just a suggestion, and hopefully this guide helped you. And if you like content like this, subscribe for more. And if you want to catch me live to ask me questions about the game or just come hang out, you can find me here on YouTube or on Twitch with a link in the video description alongside a link to my community Discord. And as always, guys, thank you for watching. Take it easy. Bye.